Zoom specific environment as well is a silly one. It's an obtuse one, right? It's like, especially with a group meeting, we all have to wait until one person is kind of done talking to then go on to the next thought. And then how many thoughts are brimming in between, and then we're holding them, that whole thing.
Yeah.
But, and it's difficult to see facial expressions in little screens, but we can see each other. So it just popped into my head that we could have a visual, subtle communication tool that was sort of like a squirrel, but could really draw a little bit of attention and could democratize anybody being able to say, hey, I think that we could be a little more focused. I think we're getting off track.
Hi, I'm excited for you to have a listen to today's episode. I chat again with the wonderful Amy Jin. She is an excellent executive coach and has worked for a long time with myself and the Athena team. And in today's episode, she unpacks 2 tips that have really helped myself and our team to work better together. One sounds absurd, but I promise it will make sense. It is putting a triangle symbol into a Zoom meeting so it doesn't go off the rails. And the second is a 6 hat exercise that is really useful to do either with a team or even yourself to make sure you're challenging your own assumptions. While I've got you, want to remind you of Athena. We're the company that sponsors this podcast, as well as a company that provides excellent, or at least good enough compliance training that employees don't complain too much about, as well as a variety of compliance related tools such as a phishing simulator, employee hotline, and HR case management tool. Please do check Athena out. Amy, I'm so jazzed to have you back because dropped 2 pearls of wisdom before, and there are 2 other ones. Ironically, actually, I used one literally this week, so we'll start there. But Amy, thank you so much for joining.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so you have been the Athena team's executive coach. You worked with both Anne and I, but then more importantly, like our whole leadership team. And I think that was very helpful because dynamics get more complicated the more people you put in to a room, right? Because you're just like dealing with everybody's little quirks with each other. And you taught us a thing which is admittedly absurd, which yet somehow works. So I'll explain what it is, and me using it this week, and then would love to go back in time. You tell me how you kind of diagnosed that this would be an appropriate tool, when people can use it, whatever. But the thing is as follows, which is when we feel like a meeting is going off the rails, we hold up a little triangle sign. I'm doing it with my hands. It is not profound. There's nothing magic that is happening. It's literally a triangle. However, the thing that is helpful is it doesn't require someone to come off of mute. And so you could have 8 people, on a meeting, and the person who hasn't said anything but is noticing this is going off the rails can just throw up a little hand. And I used it this week. We were in a meeting. It was a 30-minute meeting. And we sort of got excited about this one really tactical thing. But I realized oh, we have a much bigger agenda item. And I think we're going off the rails. And even I, as CEO, even though I can interrupt anybody, I just didn't feel comfortable. And so it's just I'm just going to do a little triangle. And it just kind of works because one, everyone's what are you doing? Because I forgot that not everyone in that meeting had known about the triangle. But tell me about this symbol. How did you realize that something so small can be quite powerful?
Well, that exact question is because I think at this point we had been all spending the last 3 years on Zoom.
It was kind of Athena grew up months after COVID. We were deeply remote. We still are. A lot of Zoom meetings.
Yeah. And for your team specifically, I actually looked back at our notes. We kept
fun.
detailed notes of our entire group coaching experience.
Terrifying.
And it was in session 3 that the triangle was invented.
Okay. And was it invented for us, or is this a tool in your executive coach extraordinaire toolkit that you throw out?
The specific iteration of it, this triangle, was invented for you.
Wow. Okay.
And so a couple things converged for this moment to happen. So number one, just in general, coaching executive teams, right? You get, again, to be on the outside watching what's happening with the communication, where they get off track. And it's easy to see as an outsider. And what you're also watching for as a coach or any outsider is, what does the team do when they do get off track? Do they keep going? Does somebody bring them back? Who does it? So when we're all live and in person, a tool that I think many other teams have used is somebody gets to shout out squirrel or shout out any word to say, hey, I think we're getting off track, we're getting distracted. What was happening on Zoom, especially with the Athena team, again, this is the third time I got to observe you all together, was I was seeing the same dynamic happen. And I was also watching to see the body language in each of these screens of like, this, are other people kind of like doing this with their eyebrows or starting to lean back or
Yeah.
starting to, get distracted. And the Zoom specific environment as well is a silly one. It's an
Yeah.
obtuse one, right? It's like,
Yeah.
especially with a group meeting, we all have to wait until one person is kind of done talking to then go on to the next thought. And then how many thoughts are brimming in between, and then we're holding them, that whole thing. But and it's difficult to see facial expressions in little screens, but we can see each other. So it just popped into my head that we could have a visual, subtle communication tool that was sort of like a squirrel, but could really draw a little bit of attention and could democratize
Mm.
anybody being able to say, hey, I think that we could be a little more focused. I think we're getting off track. So I think I stopped our conversation. That exact
Not with the
session was actually
triangle.
about not with a triangle. I
Yeah.
interrupted. I think you
Yeah.
all hated me for interrupting because you were
Probably.
actually working on a business problem.
Yeah. And
and,
we're like, no,
and
not now, Amy. And you're like, this is executive coaching. And we're like, not anymore. It's not. This is
yeah,
my meeting.
yeah. Your team is incredibly good at achieving and performing. So I think they were wanting to get the agenda done. And I was like, hold on, something's happening. And I think I pointed this out. And at first, I think a lot of the reactions were like, this is really corny. I'm never doing this.
I mean, even today, it feels silly. It feels like not improv, but like improv adjacent or something, like as a adult in the workplace, you're like, oh my God. And yet like I don't know, short of throwing up a middle finger, which I feel like would introduce a different vibe into a meeting, is sort of like it's a very easy, like I guess like waving a flag would be another one. But they all feel absurd. It's absurd. We can own that.
I think the thing that made it really align with your team is you all deeply believe in the power of each other's minds and talents. So it was almost like giving you all an ability to say, "Hey, I've got something to contribute." But
Yeah.
how much time do you have in a leadership team meeting? You're already tackling something gnarly, probably, and with
Yeah.
multifaceted. So getting focused is really important. Is really high leverage, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
And I think that was the other learning that happened in this group coaching session was, oh, we're actually not always solving the same problem.
I think it also, I think what is very intimidating about like just sort of saying like we're off track is like it might even be saying like you're off track, or like because it's like someone's meeting who owns it, and so it feels a little bit like aggressive or like oh that's a little rude, like excuse me Matt, just want to jump in and be like this meeting is off track. But I think when you give a little like symbol, a shorthand, for something, it feels less. It feels like I don't know. Somehow it's like less scary. It's like we've all agreed this is a little symbol and we use it. And I think a lot about like reducing any barrier to like getting people to do something hard. Like this is a dumb example, but I think a lot about like fitness. I try to work out in the morning, and you put your sneakers out and you like get your water bottle and you like pick out your outfit, and so that when the alarm goes off you're not like oh but like what am I gonna wear, and you're like is that really the difference between you and working out, but like sometimes it like is. And I think similarly like if you require everyone on your team to tell the CEO that they are off track, like very few people are going to do that because it's intimidating. It's easier to just be like you know what, let's just like let these last 15 minutes of the meeting ride, turn off my computer and be done. And like, but if you give someone a triangle and you kind of say that like, hey, as a whole team, I want us to be doing this. I don't know. Somehow weirdly it feels less, I think less scary and more likely that people will call out the meeting is off the rails.
I love that. And I am also curious, do you see the phenomenon where somebody might start it and then other people also join them?
Totally. Because I think like as soon as someone calls it out, it's sort of like, you know, um, it's just so rarely that one person is like, I'm lost. It's like almost always the meeting has been off the rails for 5 minutes before. Yeah, like, and it might be the case that like there's one or two people who are getting hyped, who are arguing, and they want to keep going, but everyone else is just like, I don't know, whatever's going on right now, like, does not need to be solved, or like this is not the best way to do it, or whatever. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had an example where someone was like, I think we're lost, and everyone else is like, nope, we're on track. You know?
Ah,
Yeah,
okay. So, I mean, yeah, I hope people try this, implement this with their team. I think you dropped a wisdom nugget there, which is like you do have to introduce it, and everybody has to understand what it is in the beginning.
totally. And ideally, like, you do it a couple of times, like as the leader or something, do it, because I think even if you introduce it and you say like, I really want everyone to call out when we're off track, but then like it never gets done, it won't feel like it's a norm. Like, it only feels like it's a norm when like literally people start to do it.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, thank you for giving us this absurd little like thing. It lives with us forever. It lives on. The second thing I was hoping to pull out of your, brain of wisdom. That's not the best phrase, but it was the phrase that was in my head. Pearls of wisdom is maybe where I was going. I think Melanie has started to rub off on me. She is the queen of malapropisms. That girl cannot, like, like a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. She'll be like, a bird in the hand is worth a refrigerator. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like it's just like idioms, like, but I think it's an incredibly charming little quirk, but, anyway, I'm gonna say that it's rubbed off on me. So the other tool that is kind of related to like executive meetings that you gave us is the idea of hats. Thankfully, this one is not physical hats. You've never made us wear physical hats, at least to date. But as I remember it, but then tell me like kind of how you recommend this tip be used. You kind of called out that, like, for example, in Anne and I, in our relationship, I am almost always wearing the hat that is like what could go right, and like the opportunity. And Anne will be wearing more of like the risk-oriented hat. And we all kind of have like natural tendencies or whatever it might be. And then of course when you have a function, that function, so if you're legal, you were tend to like listen to everything through a legal lens. Whereas if you're sales, you were listening to things through kind of a like, how does this move the business forward from a sales perspective? And you've encouraged us to like make sure, again, as I understand it, that we have like a correct distribution of hats. So that like if accidentally we realize that like we have no one thinking about risk, it's like, let's make sure that is a hat that is present. And then also occasionally to force ourselves to wear a hat that is not natural to our heads. So I know I have a huge head, so this is always like a very stressful like swapping around. Whereas like Anne has a normal size head, so I would have to like extend it. Because as I understand it, like forcing you to like take a perspective that is not natural. It's kind of like those exercises I think lawyers do, if like you have to like argue a position, or like debaters that is not yours. There's like something really powerful about forcing your mind to work in a way that it isn't naturally working. You sort of like see the problem in a multi-dimensional way. Talk to me about the hat exercise.
So this is a really famous one. It's the six thinking hats. And just to kind of be clear about what they are and based on colors. So the white thinking hat, so if you're in a room, you're discussing something as a team, this is, if you're wearing the white thinking hat, your role is to make sure that all the facts are there, to call for the facts and to focus on the idea that we're looking at data and what's actually knowable is facts, right? Information that you
Yep.
know or you need. Can be really powerful, sometimes can be missing, which would be, dangerous, or sometimes can be overplayed. So, which is why you need some of the other hats. So the next
Yep.
one is the yellow hat, and yellow color wise, right? This person's job is to be optimistic, to look on the bright side, to look at the benefits of something that's
This is
happening.
my hat.
Yes, and counterbalanced by, I think it's the black hat, which is the what are the risks, what are the difficulties, what's scary about this, what problems might we encounter, and just to stay there, just to stay there. So you've got a little balance there, right?
Yep.
The
Anne's
third
hat.
hat, yes, Anne's hat. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the third hat. The fourth one is a red one, and this one is your job is to feel into and call out the feelings, hunches, the intuition around the idea. Um, what's expressing the emotions that might be in the room or might be around, I don't know, launching a new marketing campaign or something like that, or putting together a new performance development plan for the team, and getting those out and seeing if there's any information about them. And then the fifth hat is the green one. So that is the creativity, the possibilities. You would like this hat too, but it's a
Mm.
little bit different from just being optimistic or looking on the positive side. It's looking at innovation.
Okay, so it's like, is there a way we haven't like we are been thinking about problem solving A and like actually flip it totally around and like Z, we should approach it this way, like some kind of like wazoo idea.
Yeah, exactly. You
Like
get to
question
be
the whole
very
premise of
inventive.
the exercise. Yeah.
Yes. And then
Yeah.
the last one, also crucial, is the blue hat, which is keeping us on track.
Mm.
Are we really following the process? Are we really working towards the problem? Are we looking at time, right? Are we managing our time correctly?
Yeah.
Again, really powerful to have that role in the room so that everybody else can do their thing.
Yeah. Yeah. The kind of admin hat, the like, yeah, like dotting the I's. Yeah.
Yes, this, right? That's very much a
Yeah.
blue hat
Yeah.
behavior. Um, so those are the six thinking hats. And if anyone using this, you can make up a thinking hat if you want a different perspective in the room, but it can be really powerful to make sure that you're working through a problem well. The switching a hat, so like if I'm usually Anne wearing that, what could go wrong hat, as you said, it basically is an exercise in empathy. So yes, it's an exercise in, cultivating my own thinking and developing another perspective about this thing, but it's also when we're looking at a leadership team, it really allows me to empathize and understand my teammate. And that creates a relational benefit for the team. And then it creates the flexibility for us to not all have to go into our roles all the time, which can be
Yeah.
tiring.
Totally. I co-founded a company before this one. And I am in that one, like, I think it's funny how your, like, anyone's personality is so shaped by, like, the needs of that team. So, what I mean by that is, like, in my first
Mhm.
company, my co founder, Dan, he's really great, but he's kind of similar to me, like, very, like, what could go right, optimistic, that sort of thing. But I realized that in that company, I think I tended to have to play more of, like, the Anne role because it's like, well, you can't have to to like, or it's very difficult. Like you need someone to sort of do the more the operations, the risk, the like. And I hadn't reflected on it at the time, but then when I co-founded this company, Athena, I realized like, oh, I actually was wearing a hat that isn't my favorite hat, and turns out that can be like a bit exhausting if you like kind of have to wear a hat, and it's not even your natural one. And it was like, I felt like really kind of freed up when it was like, oh, I can kind of be in this other space that's a little bit more creative and like it fits more with like where I naturally like to hang out. And I just thought that was interesting that like sometimes you can maybe find yourself like constantly defaulting or like being put pigeonholed, I guess might be the way to say it, to a hat that like doesn't fit to try to uh, put it into a metaphor.
Yeah, that's so important. Like getting drained, because you're having to play a role or plug a hole, basically. Like I would have said to you and your last co-founder, like just take turns, right? Because you're going to get to a better result if you diversify your thinking. That's what this is all about. But for one person to be always like stigmatized into that, it can, yeah, it's taking you out of your genius. By the way, you can do the six thinking hats by yourself on a
Yeah,
problem you're
yeah,
working on by yourself. Just, put on a different perspective and see what happens.
totally.
Um,
I've actually heard people doing like using AI to do this a little bit, like if they're doing it themselves and they're ideating, sort of to have like sort of whatever six different like personalities of like, okay, I want someone, one to analyze it this way, one to think about the risk. And I agree that I think it's I think there's something very valuable about taking different perspectives and like forcing the intellectual exercise.
I'd be curious to hear what ChatGPT has to say when it wears the red hat of feelings, hunches, intuition, fears, dislikes, and hates.
I do feel like that might not be its best hat.
It
That
could
would
be
be
funny though.
my guess. It's not the exact same, but maybe a point to end on is we have started doing we revamped our leadership meetings. Melanie did a phenomenal job. And one of three questions we ask at the beginning of the meeting is something like, how do we make sure we're keeping the customer's perspective in mind, not our perspective? And actually, Matt at the last leadership meeting, I gave him kudos on this, started talking about something. And naturally, I think as a company, you think about like what do I think about this? Like, how do I care? And Matt was like, I think we are making a mistake. I think we are asking ourselves what we want. And we are not like, this is Jeff Bezos' idea of having the chair in the room to represent the customer. He's like, where is that chair? Like, we're not thinking about it. And it was like such a helpful reframe because he's like, yeah, man, that is correct. Like that is a voice, a hat that we always try to bring into a meeting, but it's like helpful to have it really explicit. Like it's at the top of our meeting agenda. It's like, I think we asked like 3 questions, like, how do we keep the voice of the customer in mind? Where is there going to be natural tension for the topic? So like, okay, sales is going to want this, but product's going to want this. And one other question that might be just something as simple as like, what do we align on or whatever? But anyway, it's not exactly one of the 6 hats, but I have found that perspective has been really helpful to like force ourselves to have.
That's fabulously useful. It's your 7th hat / empty chair / the 9th or 10th leadership team member.
Exactly. Like, and it sounds so corny, but like, you're all busy and everyone's hungry and thinking about like, I don't know, the grocery list or something. And you like, if you don't have these constant reminders or like, I don't know what you would call them, talismans or something, like it's just like really easy to forget.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Amy, thank you for introducing such great concepts to our team. The wonderful, absurd triangle symbol that, just gets tossed out on the regular now, and the hats, which doesn't as much. However, I think it's a good push for us to make sure that we're kind of occasionally doing the exercise. And I hope that people find these little tidbits useful.
Me too. Thank you for having me, Roxanne.
Oh my gosh, this is a blast. I've been waiting my whole life to say this. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and follow us on LinkedIn because that's the only social media platform where we hang out.